I'll answer the question. You want answers?
I think I'm entitled.
You want answers?
I want the truth!
You can't handle the truth!
News is starting to trickle out of 2019 San Diego Comic-Con. Expect to see a few more of these segments than normal over the next few days during SDCC. Today, I'm going to discuss my thoughts on a couple of interviews with Jonathan Hickman in preparation for his X-Men reboot. Also on the docket is Brian Azzarello's newly announced Birds of Prey series. It seems the tail is wagging the dog at DC Comics these days. Rob Liefeld revealed he's writing and illustrating an upcoming Snake Eyes series from IDW. Is this good or bad news for the classic Joe character? Finally, I'm going to briefly discuss some more DC news, including series delays. Surprise, surprise, Doomsday Clock is on the list. With that, the Wes is here to break down all the latest comic industry news. Comicbook.com is reporting Marvel's Jonathan Hickman is plotting a new trajectory for the X-Men franchise. Beginning next week, Hickman will take over as lead writer on Marvel's X-Men comics line. It begins with two miniseries, House of X and Powers of 10. After that, as Hickman told comicbook.com in June, a new line of ongoing comics will launch. On the eve of San Diego Comic-Con, Hickman spoke again about his plans for Marvel's mutants. You don't want to do archaeology or nostalgia tropes, Hickman tells Entertainment Weekly. My job is to do new stuff with it and launch us into a newer age of X-Men. This is something I've been writing and rewriting in my head since I was a kid. I've been in the kitchen for a long time with it. I get the ingredients. I get what makes a good meal. Hickman became a fan-favorite writer for the intricate plotting and epic scale he brought to Marvel's Fantastic Four and then Avengers. He's bringing the same approach to the X-Men. I have some general philosophies on what kind of work you should do at Marvel that I try and adhere to. I think the story should be big, Hickman says. Anytime you can mine your continuity and the existing continuity of the company in a way that evokes a response from audiences and not confusion, that's powerful. And you're crazy not to utilize it when you're writing these books. The cardinal rule beyond that is at the end of the day, after you've torn up the playroom and scattered all the toys, you put everything all back on the shelf. Don't be an a-hole and leave a mess. On the surface, this sounds excellent. X-Men should be one of the pillars of Marvel Comics. Series mismanagement and creators using the mutant lineup as their mouthpieces for their own political agenda left X-Men a shell of their former glory. X-Men were rebooted in 2017 to disastrous results. Cullen Bunn, Mark Guggenheim, and most notoriously Tom Taylor simply don't get what made X-Men the most popular comic in the world and envy of the entire industry for years. Prioritizing social issues and new characters readers never connected with over quality superhero stories featuring X-Men's vast array of classic characters resulted in another reboot in 2019. The initial plan was for Hickman to reboot X-Men much earlier. His arrival at Marvel Comics was delayed. X-Men group editor Jordan White used the postponement as an opportunity to cash grab by rebooting classic series Uncanny X-Men, releasing 10 very low-quality issues with 3 writers weekly to launch an unnecessary X-Men event. Age of X-Man was DOA featuring no breakout titles. This was all done with the full knowledge the entire X-Men line was rebooting a few short months later. The events in Age of X-Man and Uncanny X-Men were pointless and a waste of customers' time and money, further tarnishing X-Men's reputation among retailers and readers. Fixing Marvel Comics X-Men is a tall order for Jonathan Hickman. Matthew Rosenberg just completed his 12-issue run as architect of Uncanny X-Men. He left the series and characters in tatters, something that doesn't appear to sit well with Hickman. Rosenberg's Uncanny run, following the launch of Age of X-Man, was initially promising, but by the end, he was killing off characters by the issue, most notoriously disposing of original X-Men team member Havoc off-page. X-Men needs a central creative voice in the worst way. Jordan White's management of the X-Men franchise is incompetent at best. Jonathan Hickman appears to be taking this responsibility very seriously. Rebooting everything for a third time in 2 years is unfortunately necessary. He needs to reset the whole thing and repair the mess left behind. As I understand it, Hickman is in full control of all X-Men series and hand-selected the creative teams. It's a huge ask for readers and retailers to trust Marvel Comics' third X-Men reboot in 2 years. I, for one, think Hickman is the right man for the job. He stated he's going to be overseeing the universe and personally writing the main X-Men series for the next several years. X-Men needs to maintain creator stability and series continuity for at least 3 years to fix the debacle Jordan White's ineptitude created. I do believe Marvel is making a huge miscalculation pricing the House of X and Powers of 10 number 1s at $6 each. At some point, the publisher needs to extend an olive branch to burnt customers. Newsarama is also reporting on Hickman prior to his X-Men relaunch next week. Jonathan Hickman isn't mincing words when it comes to what he sees as faults in the way Marvel Comics takes advantage of the immense mainstream popularity of Marvel Studios films. In an interview with Entertainment Weekly, Hickman talks about Marvel Comics reacting as opposed to acting to each MCU film. I think one of the big mistakes that some people make at Marvel Comics is that we are reactive to what they're doing in the Marvel films, said Hickman. We should not be taking our creative cues from the direction they're taking things in the movies. That kind of defeats the point. Hickman's work on Marvel comic books Infinity and Secret Warriors have inspired storylines and characters in both the MCU movies and television, most notably the Black Order characters in Avengers Infinity War and Avengers Endgame. They have $1 billion to play with, and we don't. You can't compete in that matter, and you shouldn't, the writer continued. My argument has been that I should always be way out in front of that stuff, and all that stuff is being drawn from source material. Amen, Brother Hickman. Comic books and film are two very different mediums. Rarely does a movie-inspired comic book break out or connect with readers. Movies inspired by original comic stories, on the other hand, are a multi-billion-dollar industry. Comic creators aren't constrained by effects budgets, actor schedules, or movie runtimes. Comic creators taking direction from the MCU or other comic-inspired movie properties is the proverbial tail wagging the dog. A real issue with comics today is many writers see them as auditions for the opportunity they actually want. They don't respect the medium, the characters, or history. It's one of the reasons so many new comics don't resonate with readers. DC co-publisher Dan Didio recently lamented sales of classic comic facsimile issues are outselling new comics. It's a quality problem. Most new comics suck because writers don't want to write comics. They want to write movie and TV scripts. And it's Didio's own fault for not hiring or promoting creators who actually have passion for comics. It's literally his job. According to Newsarama, DC will launch a new Birds of Prey ongoing series this October from writer Brian Azzarello. The series, announced at DCComics.com, brings together Black Canary, Huntress, and Harley Quinn for a new iteration of the classic all-female super team. The story kicks off with Black Canary's life in shambles, but everything changes when an old flame and a new enemy, a gang named La Esposas de la Muerte, come crashing into her life. Huntress will become involved at the urging of Renee Montoya, who serves as a supporting role in the story, while Harley joins the team after returning to Gotham following a stint with the Suicide Squad. It's cool to have a story to tell about these characters I've never worked on before, added Azzarello. Having Harley involved screws with the new Birds of Prey dynamic. Hell, with every dynamic. She's chaos, but she might be the most together member of the team. Canary, Huntress, and Montoya have a lot of damage baggage. The team and I are gonna unpack it. It sounds like DC Comics needs to hire Jonathan Hickman as a consultant. The Birds of Prey are traditionally a Barbara Gordon-led team, whether it be Oracle or Batgirl. Harley Quinn has never been part of the team to my knowledge. Shockingly, Warner Brothers are releasing a Birds of Prey film centered on Margot Robbie's character from the very poorest Suicide Squad movie. The film sucked, but the character was a huge hit with cosplayers. DC Comics have been hell-bent on making Harley the most powerful character in their universe ever since. The tail is most definitely wagging the dog here. we're getting a Harley Quinn-led, Barbara Gordon-less Birds of Prey comic book. This feels like an enormous waste of Brian Azzarello's talent. I'm not the biggest fan of his writing, but he has a unique style. Azzarello is known for taking risks with characters. Now, they don't always pay off, but they're normally interesting. I can't see DC Comics letting him do much, if anything, interesting with the characters prior to the movie launching. I predict Brian Azzarello will be creatively neutered on this project and his fans will be left wanting. Supporters of Rob Liefeld are sure to be excited by news coming from comicbook.com. Few G.I. Joe characters stand out as much as a sword-wielding assassin Snake Eyes, and IDW plans to take full advantage of that. The licensed comic powerhouse has joined forces with Hasbro to unveil Snake Eyes' Dead Game, a miniseries written and drawn by legendary Rob Liefeld. According to Liefeld, the creator of Marvel characters like Deadpool, Cable, and Domino, it's a dream come true. 2 words, bucket list, Liefeld said in a statement. 1 more word, icon. Snake Eyes is Wolverine, Deadpool, and Spider-Man rolled into one amazing character for an entire generation of fans that thrilled to his adventures in comics and cartoons and hung on his every toy release. My parents drove me all over the country to get my G.I. Joe action figures as a kid. He continued, these were my first and most favorite toys. Working with Hasbro and all my friends at IDW has been a blast so far. I can't wait to get this work out into the public. If you enjoyed my recent Marvel work, this will match or exceed it. Now this is the comic book I never knew I needed. Snake Eyes is easily my favorite Joe character. He sits right at the top of my list of favorite comic characters outside the big 2 with X-O Manowar, Spawn, and Rye. I've read a few Snake Eyes miniseries, and the Chuck Dixon-led ones are absolutely my jam. I thought Liefeld's recent run on Major X was a bit uneven, but it was never boring. I'm expecting Snake Eyes' Dead Game to be action-packed and highly enjoyable. Rob being on art is the cherry on top, in my opinion. It's great seeing him experience a bit of a career renaissance of late. And quite frankly, I like the cut of his jib on social media. I wish more creators could afford to be honest about the state of the industry and call out missteps when they see them. Rob Liefeld's Snake Eyes goes to the top of my watch list for 2020. According to ICV2.com, on the eve of San Diego Comic-Con, DC Comics has announced a new series of one-shots in which DC's top writers and artists provide a new and terrifying take on key events and storylines in DC continuity. The first 2 prestige format, 48-page, $6 Tales from the Dark Multiverse titles, Tales from the Dark Multiverse Batman Nightfall #1, and Tales from the Dark Multiverse Death as Superman #1, will debut in October, the same month that DC is making available $1 reprints of the books that inspired them, Batman #497 and Superman #75. Due out first on October 16 is Tales from the Dark Multiverse Batman Nightfall #1, which was written by top Batman scribe Scott Snyder and Kyle Higgins with art by Javier Fernandez and a cover by Lee Weeks. This tale takes place 30 years after Bruce Wayne failed to take back the cowl, which went to John Paul Valley, aka Saint Batman, who may just have to do battle with the son of Batman. Next on October 30 comes a new twisted take on the most popular comic book of the modern era, DC's Death of Superman. In Tales of the Dark Multiverse Death of Superman #1, writer Jeff Loveness puts the focus on Lois Lane, who becomes the Eradicator and takes revenge on those who let the Man of Steel succumb. Brad Walker and Andrew Hennessy provide the art, while Lee Weeks designed the striking cover. DC is planning additional Tales from the Dark Multiverse one-shots based on other key DCU events such as Infinite Crisis, Blackest Night, and new Teen Titans The Judas Contract. I'm going to be honest, I hate the Dark Multiverse for the most part. I enjoyed a couple of the Dark Knight's Metal specials, but didn't particularly appreciate the main series. I don't care for the Batman Who Laughs. He looks cool, but the character comes off as high school fanfic in my opinion. I don't like the premise for the Year of the Villain as a whole, and hope it doesn't affect most of my favorite characters or series. I think Scott Snyder's one of the better writers at DC, but don't find him must-read for me. I do love the lead artist announced, but Tales from the Dark Multiverse, and most everything dealing with Year the Villain for that matter, will be easily skipped on my part. I wouldn't expect to hear much about either moving forward on the channel, especially not any reviews. I know it's probably not a popular opinion, but it's how I feel. If you're excited for Tales from the Dark Multiverse and You're the Villain, I'm very happy for you. Finally, DC announced a handful of comic issue releases are being delayed. In a surprise to no one, Jeff Johns' Doomsday Clock number 11 is pushed back to September after initially being solicited for 22 May. Issue 7 of John's Shazam series is also being delayed 10 weeks and is now scheduled for release in August. Issues 8 and 9 are likewise rescheduled. Finally, Joshua Williamson's Batman Superman is delayed 2 weeks and is scheduled for release in late August. I've heard rumblings for a while now that Doomsday Clock's constant delays are a result of Jeff Johns and not artist Gary Franks, as is widely believed. I'm not sure Doomsday Clock and Shazam both being delayed again completely confirm it, but it certainly lends credence to those rumors. Batman Superman is DC's lead title for the upcoming Year the Villain event. I'm not sure if this is due to the creative team or syncing the book up with other Year the Villain happenings. Either way, 2 weeks seems rather harmless, especially considering Batman Superman number 2 is already scheduled for release on 25 September. That does it for today's news. I have live events scheduled for Saturday and Sunday, but if announcements from San Diego Comic-Con are big enough, you may see more news updates over the weekend. I'll definitely have a news rundown on Monday and possibly Tuesday, depending on how many new projects are revealed. Thank you very much for watching this video, and I hope you join me for my next comic industry news segment. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a like. I would appreciate it very much. It helps us attract more views for the channel. Subscribe for future commentary, comic book news, and reviews. And don't forget to ring the bell for notifications. If you want to talk comics, movies, and much, much more, you can follow me on Twitter at Wes_from_TC. With that, Salamat Po, and I'm out.